Bacterial infection. Bacteria or microscopic organisms are living things that have just a single cell. Under a magnifying instrument or microscope, they look like balls, poles, or spirals. They are little to such an extent that a line of 1,000 could fit over a pencil eraser. Most bacteria won't hurt you. Under 1%. 1% of the various kinds make individuals unwell. Most bacteria are useful. A few bacteria help to process food, annihilate sickness-causing cells, and give the body required nutrients. Bacteria are used in making foods like yogurt and cheddar. An infection happens when an organism enters the body and causes ailment. The organism that causes infection are extremely differing and can incorporate things like parasites, bacteria and fungi. Meanwhile, infectious bacteria can make you sick. They replicate rapidly in your body. Many radiate synthetics called poisons, which can harm tissue and make you unwell. Sample of bacteria that causes bacterial infection are Streptococcus, Staphylococcus, and E. coli. You can be infected in various ways, for example, by infected individuals, by either contaminated water or food, and by insect bit. The standard treatment is the use of antibiotics, anti-infection agent or antitoxin. The side effect of taking antibiotics is that the bacteria in the body learns to resist them, thereby causing antibiotic resistance. Afterward, you could get or spread an infection that those antibiotics can't cure. Types of infection. Bacterial infection. Bacteria are exceptionally diverse single-celled microorganism which comes in variety of different sizes and shapes. They are found in different environments including the soil, water, inside animals, on and inside the human body. Some can endure outrageous temperatures or even radiation exposure. Like the bacteria in the digestive tract which helps to digest food, we have greater number of bacteria on and inside our bodies which are of great help for the body. However, we have some bacteria that causes infection when given opportunity to enter the human body. This includes strep throat, bacterial urinary tract contaminations (UTIs), regularly called coliform bacteria, bacterial food poisoning, regularly called E. coli, salmonella, or shigella, bacterial cellulitis e.g. Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA, bacterial vaginosis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis, Clostridium difficile C. diff, tuberculosis, whooping cough, pneumococcal pneumonia, bacterial meningitis, Lyme sickness, cholera, botulism, tetanus, anthrax, Bacillus anthracis. Bacterial infections are frequently treated with antibiotics. Antibiotics are prescriptions that influence bacterial development. They can either hinder bacteria from duplicating or kill them outrightly. There are various classes of antibiotics. Your prescription depends on what type of bacterium caused your infection. Furthermore, abuse of antibiotics will cause bacteria to develop resistance. Parasitic infection. Parasites live on or in a host living being and get nourishment or different supplements at the host's cost. There are three kinds of parasites that can cause ailment in people: protozoa, small, one-celled organism; helminths, larger, worm-like organism; ectoparasites, organisms, like bugs, ticks, and lice. Parasitic infections include malaria, toxoplasmosis, trichomoniasis, giardiasis, tapeworm infection, roundworm infection, pubic and head lice, scabies, leishmaniasis, river blindness. Similarly, as with bacterial and fungal infections, there are explicit medications accessible to treat a parasitic infection. The kind of antiparasitic prescription that you'll have to take will depend on the sort of parasite that is causing the infection. Viral infection. Virus are smaller bacteria and are infectious organism. A virus is made from a bit of genetic material that is encircled by a protein shell. Some viruses may have an extra envelope or other features on their surface. Viruses are parasitic in nature and require a host cell which will aid its life cycle. When the virus has entered the host cell, it duplicates rapidly through the cellular component. New viruses are replicated from the host cell, which sometimes make the host cell to die. Here are some examples of viral infection known worldwide: flu, influenzas, common cold, measles, rubella, chickenpox, norovirus, polio, infectious mononucleosis (mono), herpes simplex infection (HSV), human papillomavirus (HPV), human immunodeficiency infection (HIV), viral hepatitis A, B, C, D, and E, viral meningitis, West Nile virus, rabies, Ebola, coronavirus. The treatment of viral infection focuses on mitigating side effects until your immune framework clears the infection. Sometimes, antiviral medications might be accessible to help treat a viral infection. A few instances of viral infection for which antivirals are accessible includes HIV, herpes, and hepatitis C. Some infections remain with you forever once you've been infected. They can lie torpid inside your body and may reactivate. A few samples are herpes simplex infection (HSV) and varicella zoster infection (VZV). Antibiotics are not effective for treating viral infection. Prions. A prion is a protein, not an organism. Prions can influence typical body proteins and cause them to fold into irregular shapes. They can lead to dementia and difficulties in walking or talking. Prion illnesses are extremely uncommon. Some prion conditions are acquired through consumption of contaminated food while others are inherited. For instance, variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob illness related to mad cow disease and Kuru. There's presently no therapeutic treatment for prion infections. In any case, there are drugs that may slow their movement. Fungal infection. Fungi are organism that includes things like yeasts and molds. They can be found all through nature, in dirt, in wet regions like washrooms, and on or in the bodies. Fungi can either be invisible or visible, such as the mold on the washroom tiles. Not all fungi can make you sick, however a few instances of fungal infections include, vaginal yeast diseases, ringworm, athlete's foot, thrush, aspergillosis, histoplasmosis, cryptococcus infection, fungal meningitis. Fungal infection can be treated with antifungal prescriptions. Your prescription depends on the kind of fungal infection you have. For instance, a topical antifungal cream might be given for conditions like ringworm or athlete's foot. Oral antifungal prescriptions are easily accessible. An extreme fungal infection may require intravenous (IV) antifungal drug. Symptoms of infection. These are general symptoms of infection: fever or chills, body a throbbing painfulness, feeling worn out or exhausted, coughing or wheezing, stomach upset, for example, vomiting, diarrhea, nausea. There are a few circumstances that should trigger a visit to your primary care physician. A prolonged or consecutive reoccurrence of a symptoms, breathing problems, a serious headache or cerebral pain that happens with a high fever, a rash, unexplained swelling, an animal bite. HPV, gonorrhea, and chlamydia are example of infections that doesn't show any symptoms. Sources of infection. You can get an infection from multiple points. Not all infections are spread in the same way. While one infection may be transmitted via infected blood, another may be transmitted by the bite of an insect. Direct contact. In most cases, infection is transmitted from one person to another through touching, kissing, or having intercourse. Direct contact with bodily liquids of an individual who is infected can likewise spread infection in most cases, which includes things like blood, nasal emissions, saliva, semen, vaginal secretions. Other infections can be transmitted from an infected mother to the innocent child either through the placenta or during childbirth. In direct contact, an infected person can spread infection unknowingly through coughing, sneezing and flu. Influenza virus would then be present in the air or on any objects such as door handles. If the contaminated object is touched and then touch your face, mouth, or nose, you may become infected. Contaminated food or water infection can be transmitted via eating food or drinking water that is contaminated with infectious organisms. For example, foods prepared under an unhealthy environment, raw or half-cooked foods, for example meat, seafood or produce, inappropriately canned foods, unpasteurized milks or juices, foods that have been improperly stored or refrigerated. An infected animal. A few infections are spread to individuals from infected animals. A good example is the rabies virus, which can be often transferred from a bite from an infected animal. Another example is toxoplasmosis, which can be transferred from changing an infected cat's litter box. A bug bite. There are a wide range of kinds of biting bugs, including ticks, mosquitoes, and lice. You may get an infection if a bug carrying an infectious microorganism nibble you. A few examples are malaria fever, Lyme malady, and West Nile virus. Identifying an infection. Some infections have trademark indications. Your physician might have the option to make a finding dependent on these symptoms, your clinical history, and a physical assessment. Some bacterial and viral infection have similar symptoms, therefore making it difficult to determine what type of organism is responsible in situations where it's muddled what's causing your infection. Your PCP may take a sample from your body to be tested in the laboratory. Where this sample is gathered from depends on your infection and the type of organism suspected. Some example includes blood, urine, stool, nasal or throat, sputum, cerebrospinal liquid (CSF). Your primary care physician may use imaging tests, for example, an X-ray, CT scan, or MRI scan. He may need to take a biopsy of the affected tissue to inspect it. Preventing infection. There are numerous moves that you can make to prevent the spread of infections. Tips below can be of great help. Practice good hygiene. Wash your hands regularly, particularly before eating or when handling food, after using the washroom, and before contacting your face or mouth. Get immunized. Numerous infections can be prevented through immunizations. For example, measles, whooping cough, and hepatitis B. Abstain from sharing personal things like drinking glasses, toothbrushes, and extremely sharp objects. Practice safe sex. Cover cuts or scratches to avoid being infected. The use of insect repellent helps prevent being bitten by mosquitoes or ticks. Be cautious with the food you eat and ensure it's warmed to the correct temperature before eating. Keep away from wild creatures. Get vaccinated before traveling. Cover your mouth when coughing. Remain at home when you feel sick and make a point to ask your PCP when you can come back to work or school.